Hey family, welcome to the cookout. You are here with Big Kobe and Stephen Gaither. HBCU Game Days, MEAC Weekly. Now we're going to talk to you twice a week about all these things that go on in the MEAC. And we're going to start off. This is our first show, but we're going to start off and we're going to talk about what we think the standings were. And we're going to try to bring some things to you because everybody's talking about the MEAC, the SWAC, and all these things going on. But now we're going to break some of these things down and talk to you what we think of when you talk about the MEAC, and especially how they're going to. We're going to start off with how they finish. So, Steve, what do you think the order of finish is going to be, and why? Break that down for me.
Yeah, Cole. Well, I mean, it's first off, happy football season. It's glad it's finally here on the eve of
Yes.
it. The
Mm-hmm.
MEAC-SWAC challenge this week. So, the MEAC is only 6 teams, so it's the few, the proud, the MEAC. So, uh, you know, I look at the bottom. Obviously, somebody's got to finish last, and I'm putting Dell State there.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I'm putting Dell State there at the bottom. Uh, a little bit different from the MEAC's predicted order of finish. I got Morgan State next at 5. I think they have a great new head coach at with Damon Wilson. But I think he does have some time. It's gonna take some time to do some rebuilding there. So I have them at 5. Number 4, I would have the Howard University Bison. I think they are a team that I think if they finish fourth, they'd be disappointed, and I think they should be disappointed if they finish fourth. But we're used to disappointments from Howard, so until they prove us anything other than that, that's what we're gonna kind of that's gonna be their floor. But I don't. I wouldn't be surprised if they were a spot or two higher than that when all is said and done. Number 3, I'm going to go with Norfolk State. Uh, they were right there last year, had a chance, and it slipped right through their fingers in tragic fashion. And then, North Carolina Central, and is going to be the team I think that's everyone is most likely to challenge the reigning MEAC champs, the reigning Celebration Bowl winner, and so I think South Carolina State still the team to beat until somebody knocks them off. They've had some trouble with some of the premier HBCU teams in the SWAC with FAMU, and then also with North Carolina A&T. But when it comes to the MEAC, nobody was able to knock them off, even though they got close. They had a couple close scares. So
Mm-hmm.
I think Coach Pugh and his guys are hoping they could put a little bit more distance between themselves and the rest of the conference this year.
Yeah, so that was interesting. Mine's is like way different almost. I feel like I got like something completely different. So I'm gonna start from the top down. I'm gonna be different all the way through. So I got South Carolina State. I mean, they got 11 returning All American. I mean, all conference players, and the consistency. And like I said, I always bet on Buddy. Coach Pugh is definitely consistency at the coaching, consistency at the system, and as I heard from a great coach, tradition never graduates. They have something going. I have North Carolina at second, and I'm wavering because I really think that the MEAC is going to be a battle for second, and a few people may be able to challenge South Carolina State. Now I got North Carolina second because I looked at their quarterback, the consistency that they have, and the quarterback is always a key in a lot of those positions. And um, shucks, what is it? Uh, Davius is definitely a dual threat. He's excellent in playing, and then they also have great special teams, and so that's going to be an interesting thing to see how they can develop. Because one thing that I looked at was also home games. They play most of their away games against the most talented or the most talented teams that are going to challenge them. So that's going to be difficult, and that may cause a problem for North Carolina Central. Third, though, I had Delaware State. I put Delaware State third because they have a great defense and they got 8 home games. They have 8 home games. So defense and playing at home can cause problems for a lot of teams when they play Delaware State. Also, they lost a lot of games by 6 points, and I've seen a few of them. South Carolina State wide open drop pass. Um, I think it was Morgan, a late night, a young team played on national TV, dropped the pass. And so I think those were game changers, and that could be a problem. Now, I picked Norfolk fourth, but they're who I'm concerned about the most. You can't replace Jawan Carter. They're coming in with a strong running game, J.J. Davis. They lost a few of their offensive linemen, and they have a secondary that is quality. But can their big men up front stop the other offense? And can those big men up front stop the opposing defenses? Because the MEAC really plays, really, except for a few teams, some really solid defense. And so I'm trying to figure out where they're going to go. Now, I have Howard at fifth, and I really like Howard, but I'm confused or concerned about what their defense can do because there's two things. Uh, Quentin, Williams had like 2,300 yards passing, but they didn't turn into points. And what I want to see is that can they turn that yardage in their offense, turn that yards into points? And also, can their defense really stop people? They got somebody great with Brock and Brown on the front end, and they got a decent secondary, but their inability to stop people when they needed to, and the inability to score points or get that first down when they needed to was a problem last year. So if they can make that change on defense and stop some people when they need to, and if they can put up points, which I know they can, like they lost to Hampton by, they both scored in the 40s. They lost to another team and it was 35 to 20 something. So I'm really excited to see what Howard can bring, but they have to prove it because I really think like this list anywhere from 2 to 5 is interchangeable depending on how the ball bounces during the game. And I have Morgan State, who I truly believe in, at 6 right now, but they got to show me. They got a great coach. I've been to practice. They got a lot of energy, people flying around the ball. It looks like there's a whole culture shift going on down there. But I got to start seeing it in games. It's great to see people look good at practice, but I got to see them turn it around in games. And so I'm waiting to see that because they got those 2 running backs that are awesome. I want to see who they have at quarterback. That's the big question. And what difference is that going to make as far as the culture, defense, and that quarterback play? So that's how I have it rounded out. And that was in my order of finish in top 6. It's going to be interesting, man. So that's what I'm looking at. Who do you think is going to be the biggest challenge to South Carolina State at the top?
Well, like I said last year, everybody, not everybody, there were a couple games where they pulled away from, but they got a challenge from quite a few folks, and I think folks will continue. Nobody's going to back down from them,
Mm-hmm.
but they are, I think, the most. They think they've got probably the most talent coming back on both sides of the ball. When you talk about Shaquan Davis and what
Mm-hmm.
he can do as a wide receiver. Corey Fields, was shaky at times, but I think last year winning the Celebration Bowl probably got him a lot of confidence, and so we'll see how that translates throughout the year.
Mm-hmm.
They play a tough schedule up front, which last year didn't bother them. They played a tough schedule and were able to make it through and get some wins and do what they needed to do to get to the Celebration Bowl.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that they're there for sure. Like you say, North Carolina Central, they do have a lot of road games, but I think yeah, I think that I think home home games. Yeah, statistically, you might have a little bit more of an edge, but home playing at home doesn't make you a much better team than you are unless you got some help from somebody up above or in stripes. And I don't know. I was sitting here while you were talking about Delaware State and they're looking at their home record. I haven't had a chance to look at their home record cumulatively over the
Mm-hmm.
last years, over the last decade. But I'm sure it's probably not a winning record. So I mean, it's great that they have 8 home games, but they got to win them. And so I think it'll be. I think again, last year there were a lot of close games. I think special teams is going to be important, and I think the teams that do the little things that don't make penalties and play well on special teams that aren't the sexiest things. Those are the people who are going to have a chance to win some of those games where maybe everything else is even other than that. So
Mm-hmm.
very interesting to see. You know, a lot. That we got one proven coach,
Mm-hmm.
and we got a lot of other guys that feel like they can. That feel like now is their time. Now is their time to make their mark. Coach Pugh's been in the league for 20 years now. If you put all the rest of the guys together as head coaches, they don't have that much experience. So it's really the field versus South Carolina State. And again, South Carolina State is going to have a lot of those tough games at home. You know what I mean? And I think when you add them there and what they can do at home, I think it favors them pretty well. So,
Mm-hmm.
like you said, you like Howard again. Everybody likes Howard, but they're gonna have to. They're gonna have to. They can't just show up on first day of class with a shiny apple and a new tie and think that and think that things are gonna that they're gonna certainly be the star of the show. You know what I mean? They're gonna have to prove. They've got the MEAC-SWAC challenge, which has traditionally been a great balance for the MEAC. I think the
Mm-hmm.
MEAC is 11-4, so in that game against the SWAC. So we'll see if they get any buoyancy from that, and then they got to go to Howard. I mean,
Yeah.
Hampton, and then they've got some other tough
Morehouse.
games as well.
Well, Morehouse
Morehouse.
shouldn't be that tough, but they play Harvard and they play Yale, I believe,
Well,
this year.
let's not count out Morehouse. You know what I mean? I think for sure, all of those are game. All of these are games that are that they're going to want to win for sure, and be
Mm-hmm.
as best as they can going in and have some confidence. Is mainly going into the MEAC play. I know you missed the MEAC, but don't brush off Morehouse like that. I think Morehouse is. They're definitely gonna have something to prove. They want to show up in the bright lights as well.
I hear that. And so, but you mentioned, and we talked about this before, the MEAC-SWAC challenge and the Celebration Bowl really bids well when you look at the numbers. But when you look at regular out of conference play, those numbers change for the MEAC-SWAC competitions, and people haven't talked about that yet. And so, tell me a little bit about that for a second, because I can't remember the exact numbers. I know was it Blue Bloods talked about it on their show, um, but the MEAC has a losing record outside of the challenges.
Yeah. I mean, it's definitely again the showcase games, the MEAC-SWAC challenge, and the Celebration Bowl. The MEAC has done overwhelmingly well, especially in recently the MEAC-SWAC challenge, and then the SWAC has only one win in the Celebration Bowl to this point. So,
Mm-hmm.
definitely an opportunity for the MEAC to hope that they can continue the dominance that they've had.
Mm-hmm.
As well. But it's going to be, again, you look at South Carolina State. If you look at South Carolina State last year, they won a Celebration Bowl. They beat Jackson State, which nobody else in the SWAC could do. But if they had been in the SWAC East and they played three SWAC East teams last year, um, four times because they played Alabama. I'm sorry, they played Alabama State as well. So they would not have even made it into the SWAC championship game because they
Mm-hmm.
lost to both FAMU and Alabama A&M. They would have been at best they would have been third in the SWAC East.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a situation where the MEAC has a coach explained it to me like this. For what it's worth, the first couple of weeks, MEAC has mostly been a defensive league. The SWAC has been an offensive league, and they play early in the season the MEAC-SWAC challenge. And most years, your defense is ahead of your offenses on the field. So,
Mm-hmm.
a little edge there in the MEAC, and then however people want to feel about it, there's a 2 week advantage. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
there's a 2 week advantage, and if you're really looking at it, you look at last year, right? South Carolina State clinched their spots uh, mid November,
Mm-hmm.
and so they knew once they knew who the conference finalists were, they had 2 weeks to look at both teams, and then another 2 weeks to look at the one team. So there is a built-in advantage there, but and that's not to take anything away from the folks who have won the games, because
Mm-hmm.
that's not easy to do. I mean, we did have Grambling win one Celebration Bowl for the
No
SWAC.
matter how much you plan, though, you got to play on the field. At the end of the
Yeah,
day,
but
you got to
yeah, but
show
come
up.
on, Kobe, 2 week,
No, I
2 week.
get you. I
Yeah,
get you. But players got to play on the field and execute and come ready to play the
it's
game.
it's an it's an advantage, and if you're the MEAC team, you're happy that it's an advantage.
I,
It is.
listen, I feel like this, and people can look at it every way, right? Everybody has advantages, but you got to play the game. That's the why we play the game, right? We when you looked at on paper, Jackson State looked like the better team, right? No disagreement. I agree, but that's why we talk about any given Sunday and for college, any given Saturday, and that's what happened. And regardless of what we say, South Carolina State was the best team that day,
Yeah, I mean, it was
and
no
that,
doubt about it. I was there. They were the best team that day, but they also had 2 extra weeks to prepare.
yeah,
I mean,
I
it
hear
just
you.
the
I
stat.
just
I mean, the stats are there, and again, when it's been week to week,
mm-hmm,
I mean, they played Alabama A&M the beginning of the year. That was a very exciting game, and again,
mm-hmm,
they had already played them in the spring,
mm-hmm,
and they had lost to them there.
mm-hmm.
It's always going to be interesting, but that's the cards that they have. The SWAC has a championship game. They had that before there was a Celebration Bowl. The MEAC doesn't have a championship game, and at this point there are only 6 teams,
Yeah.
and so they're probably there's slim to no chance it's going to be one anytime soon. So that's just what the teams that they have to deal with. But when you're talking about between the two conferences, I think that is important because, like you say, when it is, when it is,
When the bright lights are on,
yeah.
right?
Well, like I
MEAC
say,
shows
when it
out.
is,
I'm just saying, when the
no,
bright lights are on, MEAC shows out. When
right.
it's not bright lights, or when it's every regular every day, then the SWAC pulls up with some wins.
I mean, look, they've won the showcase games. They have the momentum. I mean, honestly, if you look at it, I don't know. FAMU was God, what was the score? 30 points better than it was 24 points better than South
Mm-hmm.
Carolina State that one game. You got to play the game whenever it is. But
Mm-hmm.
again, they would have been third in the SWAC East. So,
I,
but
I hear
it's
you.
it's it's you got to run the gauntlet. You got to play what's out in front of you. And so, again, South Carolina State has a lot of weapons. They are a lot older now. And so, for them, I think, they probably feel like they haven't gotten the respect that they deserve from a lot of folks. And,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's a chance for them to prove, to go out and prove that. But, it's a long season. And we'll see what happens at the end of the season. But I'm just excited to see how it's going to play out. Hopefully, it'll be a little bit more, there'll be some curveballs in there. You never know.
Well, speaking of curveballs, you brought that up, right? Who are some of the teams, right, that are like compelling or got you kind of wanting to see what they do this year?
I mean, I guess for me, I think it's all compelling. I don't really feel like there's one more than the other. I think Norfolk State. I think they are a team that has a lot of unknowns. Probably more unknowns than anybody. They have more unknowns than the two teams that I think the people are picking ahead of them, which is South Carolina State and North Carolina Central. I think they have a lot of unknowns, like you said. Not only did they lose Carter, they lost, the wide receivers. They lost defensive linemen. They lost a lot of talent, and Coach Odom's is being tasked with rebuilding that program, very quickly. And
Well,
nobody's gonna cry any
so
tears for anybody.
well,
So
speaking of that, like he got like 10 F FCS or FBS transfers coming in, Division 1 transfers coming in, right? The most of any team in the MEAC. So that's one of the things he used the transfer portal to replace or to rebuild that team. And so for me, that's interesting, right? Because you don't know if they're going to come in balling or the reason they left the other school was because they couldn't ball, or how do they mesh? Because they're almost like hired guns. So I want to see how that comes together. Because still with J.J. Davis and a few of those players on defense and that secondary, man, they still have something solid. A run game and a strong defense can win you a few games, especially on the road. You know. So, but go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, I think Norfolk State will be interesting. They could take a dip and they could, take a step
Mm-hmm.
forward. Last year they were right there. Again, they were up on North Carolina Central 21. I think it was 21-0, 20-0 in the second quarter, and looked like they were, on a date with destiny for South Carolina State, and things fell apart. And there was a lot of discipline issues. There've been a lot of off the field issues, a lot of things going on with that program. So
Mm-hmm.
you wonder if some stuff isn't, necessarily addition by subtraction. Even though when we're looking at the production, obviously they're losing. Well, there are a lot of folks that were there previously that aren't there. So I think
Mm-hmm.
they're probably, to me, the biggest mystery. I think the other programs kind of, we think we know what we're going to get from them, but I think they're one program that could either, mess around and fall back a little bit lower than people think they were predicted to finish, or if
Mm-hmm.
the chips fall where they may, they could be right there in the race to go to Atlanta. So I think they probably have the most potential to go um, high to low. So
Okay. Well, I was looking at that and I was thinking about Delaware State, right? Because they have that young defense, that great secondary with that I'm sorry, I'm having a mind fart, but that defensive line, that defensive end up front. And so if that secondary can give him time to get to the quarterback, or he can shorten the time for the secondary to cover. I mean, their defense can create a lot of turnovers and do some things. And if their quarterback, who's his second year in the system, can figure out how to get it to some of his receivers, then that might and I think, and also they have a few running backs, and people don't understand a lot of the players in Delaware because, like, besides Guthrie, is a hometown freshman. That Delaware football, they got a lot of talent there, and he's been pulling it in. And so I'm interesting to see. It's not as much of a question mark to me as Norfolk is, but I'm really interested to see if they can turn that corner, and vice versa. Howard has this powerful or explosive looking offense, right? But we got to see if their defense can stop people. So it's like Dell State has his defense, and if you could put Dell State's defense with Howard's offense, I mean, they could run somewhere. But since that's not happening, we got to figure out. We got to see how that's going to look. And then they get uh Norfolk got that Otto Coombs as the D1 transfer to come in to replace Carter. So that's interesting to me to see if he's going to really ball out and if he can take that team and move the ball like even halfway as good as Carter did.
yeah, and they also got a new offensive coordinator too. So we'll see what that looks like. We know from his time at Southern that Dawson Odoms likes to run the ball. He's got a great running back in J.J. Davis, as you said.
Mm-hmm.
MEAC preseason player, offensive player of the year. So definitely looking forward to seeing that. I think again, with a lot of these teams, I'm going to go back to a saying from the movie Willy Wonka. If ifs and buts were candy and nuts, we'd all have a Merry Christmas. And it's a lot of ifs, it's a lot of buts, it's a lot of well, maybe. We know South Carolina State. We know South Carolina State and Buddy Pugh. They have consistently been at the top of this league, fighting for that, even when it was a much deeper league. And now
Mm-hmm.
that doesn't look to have subsided at all. And he seems reinvigorated. Not only will that he also knows that he's going to be coaching not only this year as well as next year too. So I think that gives him some pause as well. And everybody's chasing the crown that's down in Orangeburg. So um, you
Mm-hmm.
know until one of these other programs show that they can come through, it's going to be interesting. But I think even beyond the conference, the MEAC definitely needs some out of conference wins to give itself some buoyancy. Obviously the MEAC-SWAC challenge again. That's a game that they've dominated. So that I mean, if they win that game, it's not going to be a huge surprise. But beyond that, again, South Carolina State, they're going to take on North Carolina A&T. I believe they're going to play FAMU again. North Carolina Central, they have Campbell, who also is going to play Delaware State, and
Mm-hmm.
um, you know, they're going to be a competitive team, team competing for the Big South, and so and those, the teams in the South end have been holding it down. It's time for the schools in the North to hold their
Are,
weight.
are
You
you
know what I
throwing a
mean?
shot? Are you throwing a shot specifically? I'm just
I
asking.
mean, Look at the stats. Look at the
I
stats.
don't disagree, but I
They
think
don't
that's
they
where
don't
we're
lie.
going to start to see. You're right, and I agree with you. The bottom half of the MEAC has always been the teams in the north. But like I'm interesting to see the offensive coordinator that you just mentioned from Norfolk is at Morgan State now. You got Sewell, who's known to be a great defensive coordinator at Morgan State. And so I'm waiting to see how long it's going to take for that to blossom and how to put those things together. Being there and looking at Howard, the culture, the energy. Um, they got a three-headed monster at running back. I did Jared Hunter, um, Ian Wheeler, and now you add Eden James, and then you got Antoine Murray leading the pack, and they got 3 or 4 receivers, and they just got a new tight end. So that offense is explosive. I'm waiting to see how they're going to shore up that defense. And Norfolk balls out, but now they're at it. They're in this state of flux that I can't really put my finger on what they're going to be able to do. But we know Dawson Odoms is a great coach, what he's putting together, and he still has some weapons on offense and defense to keep that going. So now we're talking about weapons. Who are some of those offensive weapons or players to look for in the MEAC?
Well, I think obviously you got Shaquan Davis, the wide receiver. He had a great year overall. He really turned heads in the Celebration Bowl, so he's there. Davius Richards as well,
Mm-hmm.
quarterback in North Carolina Central. J.J. Davis, as we said, the preseason offensive player of the year, running back, really powerful running back there, and a guy that can be a home run hitter.
Mm-hmm.
Williams over the quarterback at Howard. Morgan State. Still waiting to emerge. I'm hearing you talk about your guy Mr. Graham.
Alfonso
As
Graham.
a running back,
Mm-hmm.
seeing what he can do, and so I think those are some of the guys. But I think a lot of guys. I think now this might be a year where we're going to finally see some guys emerge that have been kind of playing in the background. So,
Mm-hmm.
it's definitely going to be. I think this is one year in HBCU football overall, but in the MEAC as well, where it's time for some new folks to emerge and some new guys to begin to follow. So I'm excited about it.
Yeah, me too. And you left out Kendrell Flowers. I mean,
Right, right.
he's an explosive running back. I love the. I hate that I'm having this brain fart today, and I put it in my notes. But the returner from North Carolina Central.
Codrington. Hmm.
Yes, yes, he's an explosive player. Um, and I'm waiting to see what he's going to do and how he's going to turn this thing around this year. Not turn it around, but what he's going to do and take that step to the next level to see where he's going to go. And so I'm excited to see, a lot of those players um, make some strides. And so, like, I'm really, really counting on that Kendrell Flowers to do some things. And I'm really like, Morgan State got 2 good running backs, man. And so if they can get some people to block for him and they get a quarterback to spread the ball to open the things up, they got 2 good running backs. But Alfonso Graham is definitely leading the pack in that notion for me. So what do you think about defense? Who are we looking at for defense?
I'll always, you start in Orangeburg. Jablonski Green is a grown man, and he definitely showed that not only in the Celebration Bowl, but in a lot
Mm-hmm.
of the games throughout the year. So he's there as well as Codrington. And I think for me, I think it's a chance for a lot of new guys to show up and shine. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna keep that open ended. But obviously, he's a preseason defensive player of the year, and I wouldn't bet against if I had to bet against who was gonna be the defensive player of the year when it's all over and said and done with. I can't think of anybody else that right now that I'd be picking over him. But you never know.
Well, I like Brockenborough from Howard, definitely. Because I'm a second that emotion when you talk about Jablonski Green. Definitely one of the best players in the country, let alone in the MEAC. You got Brockenborough, the defensive end out of Howard. Esaias Guthrie, freshman cornerback from Dell State. Like, um, and so I really, really like those 3. There's somebody else I'm trying to think of who's on there because the thing that I like about Delaware State is they have a nice front and that their secondary really plays. And besides Guthrie had 4 picks, he almost led the MEAC in interceptions as a freshman. I'm waiting to see him take that next step to see who he can develop into. So I'm waiting to see really. how much he can develop and what he's going to be able to produce for Delaware State. Because I do think he's one of the best cornerbacks in the country. So, and he's a freshman, so I really think he's going to turn the corner. So that's my opinion on him. And like I said, Brockenborough, um, I like him a lot. I don't know if he's the same kind of animal Jabonsky Green is, but he's definitely a disruptor, and I really, really like to see if he's going to take that next step also, and if he can help change that Howard defense to help them stop some people. And since we're speaking about Howard, we got week 0. It's the MEAC-SWAC challenge. We've been talking about how they've been showing up, how all these teams show up. What do you think is going to be the thing for what does Howard need to do to win? Do you think?
I think they just need to they just got to execute. I mean, they've got to show up, execute. Obviously, again, the MEAC has had the upper hand in this challenge. We will see what it brings this year. I think it's an interesting matchup. They're playing a team that they've never seen. This is a coach that not only has never coached at Alabama State, but also has never coached, has been a head coach. Period. So,
Mm-hmm.
it's I think it's going to be tough. I think they've got a tougher job on the scouting end of it because Alabama State can look at or has had months to look at. Okay, what did they do last year?
Mm-hmm.
Versus, they kind of have to be ready for a little bit of anything on
Mm-hmm.
their end as well. I think both teams are probably. I think neither team is gonna challenge for their league conference this year, but I
Mm-hmm.
think both teams can be disruptors and be. I think this is a solid MEAC-SWAC matchup, and so I think I don't know. I'm looking forward to an interesting game. Again, Howard does have a year under their belt with their current coaching staff. Um, but then again, they also have a year of film that they can be scouted on. That
Mm-hmm.
Alabama State does not have the same thing. Alabama State may have the element of surprise on their team. I think it's going to come down to probably some special teams. Just to see how who doesn't make mistakes in the kicking game. It's the first game. It's first
Mm-hmm.
game jitters for everybody, so there are going to be some mistakes out there. I think definitely interested to see what their quarterback Demetrius Davis looks like, former Auburn guy who was like a legend in Houston, Texas. And so I think it's going to be a really good game. I'm hoping for a close game. I'm expecting a close game. And the MEAC has had the upper hand in it, so I think I'm going to roll with that. Just and off the fact that they have a little bit more continuity within their squad there.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't think it's going to be a cakewalk. I don't think it's going to be a walk in the park. And I think it's going to be the little things that are going to determine who wins this or not. So
Well, I feel you, and I also feel like the strengths of both teams are on the field at the same time. Alabama State's defense, Howard's offense. That's going to be the key matchup. Um, I mean, we can say the whole game, but the strength of your team is on the field at the same time. Now, the other X factor, like you talk about, was it Demetrius Davis? Um, what he's going to do and how he's going to spread the ball and move the ball. They kind of got a consistent, solid run game. I don't want to call it anything more than that, but we know it can move the ball. Got a big back. And then Urshad Davis on defense. Can he slow down and manage that to keep Howard and Quentin Williams? Can he turn all those yards into touchdowns, into points? And that's what I'm waiting to see from both games. I can't wait to be there. I'm excited, and I think this game is important for several reasons. One, it sets a tone for the MEAC in the year to say what they can do. Because Howard ended the season with an interesting win. I believe it was over St. Francis, or was it the NEC champion um, near the end of the year? Am I wrong on that, Steve?
don't give me the line, man.
Okay, well
don't,
they
don't give
beat a
me
team. They beat a
right.
team, went to the playoff. I forgot exactly what team it was. Um, I believe it was St. Francis. I could be wrong, but it was an NEC champ. And at the near the end of the season, that's a quality win. If they go into this with another quality win, you may see them start to turn the corner with confidence, skill set. I mean, skill level, and all those other things, and also sets the tone for where Howard might be in the MEAC this year, and that's why it's extremely important for the MEAC that Howard win this game, but also for Howard to win this game because their out of conference wins, like you stated earlier, for the MEAC as a whole, their out of conference wins are definitely going to be important to let everybody know how strong a football conference this one is.
Can't say any better than you just said it there. I think we'll put a pin in it, and we'll get a chance to see it in Atlanta and show and prove.
All right. Well, look, everybody, welcome to the cookout. We're about to roll out, so make sure you get your spare plates and all that to get your grub. Make sure you hit us up on Twitter at HBCU GameDay, at Stephen J. Gaither, or you can hit me up, Big Kobe. Take it easy, everybody. Peace.